Welcome back to the Go-Go Report. This is going to be a new special top 10 list where I look back at 10 of my personal favorite Studio Ghibli films. Now, for the most part, I try to cover anime and stuff on my main channel, but since these are films, even if they are anime, I decided to do this list for my secondary channel. With that said, and I might upload this on the other channel as well, we'll see. But with that said, we have 3 honorable mentions, but these are my personal favorite Studio Ghibli, mostly Miyazaki done films. Great things. Some great in good, and others very much get to you emotionally. The first of honorable mentions released in 2014, The Wind Rises, which is one of the only PG-13 films released from Miyazaki, or rather from Studio Ghibli. Also, you have a somewhat more divisive film, which is kind of 50-50. More people dislike, I would say, than like overall, based on a book by the same name, Tales from Earthsea, which was released, of course, in America in 2010. It was actually one of the older films. Also, honorable mention, released originally in 2002 in the West. And that is the film, just double checking, The Cat Returns, which you kind of get a harken and look to the film from a previous film called Whisper of the Heart. Speaking of, coming in at number 10 is a very interesting, originally released in like 2012 here in the West. It was Miyazaki's attempt and take on the Borrower's story, which I thought actually turned out very interesting. As somebody who grew up with the original book about the Borrowers, I did kind of enjoy the Hollywood take on Borrowers a little bit, but I actually think this is the best take, at least theatrically speaking. Coming at number 9, released originally here in the West in 2009, one of the main characters of the film being voiced by, of course, the always awesome Liam Neeson. You have, of course, I think it has become a beloved film, or somewhat divided film, opinion-wise. That is, coming at number 9, is the film Ponyo, which is, personally, is one of the films that I've enjoyed quite a bit, though. I definitely wouldn't put it up at the top elite lists of films, but I still think it's a great film overall. And I understand some people don't like Ponyo, just like many Miyazaki films are gonna be either you love it or hate it sort of situation for most films from Studio Ghibli. Me, I tend to like pretty much any Studio Ghibli film I've seen. Coming at number 8, originally released in Japan, I couldn't find a domestic English dub release for some reason, but the original release of the film was 1989, though it wouldn't be until the 2000s that we would see an English dub release here in the West. And the main bad guy of the film is voiced by Mark Hamill, believe it or not. The film is called Castle in the Sky, which definitely become one of, I'd say, probably the more beloved films. Coming at number 7 is film I already mentioned, of course, had some connections to an honorable mention. Coming at number 7, though, there's really nothing supernatural or anything, just the girl's imagination. And it's also interesting, in fact, you get to hear at the end of the film Country Roads in Japanese, which is very interesting. But coming in at number 7 is the film Whisper of the Heart, which is a, I think, underrated Miyazaki film. Coming in at number 6, originally released in 1988 in Japan. I believe it was early 2000s or late 90s, and this film would end up creating the mascot of Studio Ghibli. Coming in at number 6 is a lot of people's all-time favorite. For me, it makes 6 because there are 5 Studio Ghibli films I like just a little bit more than this. But with that said, number 6 is My Neighbor Totoro, which is a great film overall. a lot of imagination. That's one thing I give to Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli. You can tell they really have a good imagination when it comes down to it. Coming in at number 5 was the very first Miyazaki slash Studio Ghibli film I ever watched. And it still has a special place for me to this day. Originally released in Japan in '89, though it would get released here in the West in like '98, '99 time frame, which is when I saw it, renting it from a Blockbuster video store. I miss Blockbuster. Um, and that is Kiki's Delivery Service, which is, I'd say, many people's first film from Studio Ghibli. Coming in at number 4 is a film that I have held up in my top levels of favorite Miyazaki films. I love the very much steampunk influenced world, because that's one thing, if anybody knows me, I may like music from cyberpunk, but I'm not a big cyberpunk fan overall. I prefer steampunk to cyberpunk, but that's just me. Maybe also because the era of Final Fantasy, I started playing JRPGs is what got me into steampunk. But with that said, number 4 is, of course, one of the main characters is voiced by Christian Bale. Coming in at number 4, Howl's Moving Castle. Coming in at number 3 is a film that will wreck you emotionally. It was, I believe, a Studio Ghibli film, but not Miyazaki done, if I remember correctly. This would be the second ever film from the studio that I would see. And to this day, whenever I watch this film, it will hammer you with something called emotions, and maybe even make you shed a tear. It is a really hard, impactful film, taking place looking at things from the perspective of young Japanese kids during World War II, and you see things from their perspective, which is an interesting take. Originally released in 1988 in Japan, released, I believe it was either in the late 90s or early 2000s here in the West. Coming at number 3 is Grave of the Fireflies, which is one of the most powerful, I think, animated films that have ever been made. Coming in at number 2 is the third ever Studio Ghibli and second Miyazaki film I would ever see, and it was advertised at the time. Now, the English dub, rather than being done by Japan, because this was the first PG-13 rated film to be released here, it was instead done by, at the time, division of Disney called Miramax. That being released in 1999, and that is Princess Mononoke, which has arguably become one of the most iconic films from the studio. Coming at number 1, should be no surprise to anyone, it is one of my favorite films of all time in general. It is arguably my favorite anime film of all time. Coming at number 1, released in 2002, and I even got to see this in its original brief theatrical run in theaters, and I even checked it when it got a brief re-release at Cinemark. I immediately made sure I got tickets way in advance, because it sold out quick. Coming at number 1 is easily my favorite Studio Ghibli film, favorite anime, movie, favorite Hayao Miyazaki film, and that is Spirited Away. Will always remain the king for me personally when it comes to Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki films. There's just something special, and it's one of the few films I can say I actually went out my way to get the original soundtrack to. About one of the only other films I can say that about is Princess Mononoke when it comes to the soundtrack. But with that said, everyone stay safe. Hopefully enjoy the music in the background, some good chill wave, and stay safe, and I'll see y'all next time.